But before we dive into today's exciting interview, I'd like to give a quick shout out to Books to Life Marketing, the team making it all possible. They specialize in helping authors bring their stories to life through expert publishing, marketing, and media exposure. They're behind some of the most inspiring author journeys we've seen. If you're an author looking to elevate your book, Books to Life Marketing is the partner you want in your corner. And my guest today is Johnathan Ehritz. Johnathan, thanks for stopping by, and I appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you very much, Neil. Thank you for having me on this show.
Yes, and absolutely, Johnathan, we're going to talk a little bit about specifically his short bio, was diagnosed with autism Asperger's at a very young age, and his difference has shown through the infinite imagination and creativity he expresses growing up. Now he expresses his ideas through writing, creating engaging stories with lovable characters, imaginative worlds. He's attended Landmark College, where he received his associates and became an honorary student, Phi Theta Kappa. Johnathan, thanks for stopping by, and we're going to talk about your book, and I'm really excited you're on the show today. Here's my first question for you. When you wrote The Stable Boy, who was your target audience?
Originally, when I wrote The Stable Boy, it was meant to be for younger readers, like children and maybe kids in their early teens. I've noticed recently that a lot of people that read my book, that's also adults, not just children, which I consider a plus for me because I don't want my writing to be just limited to a certain group. I want it to be open to anyone to read, anybody who's interested to read The Stable Boy.
Interesting. And when you were writing, you thought that audience would be different, and you've seen specifically from feedback that it's more than just children.
Oh, yes, definitely. A lot of the book signings I've done, some adults have taken interest into my book, and I receive a lot of feedback from adults complimenting me on how excellent the book is and how well read or written it is.
Absolutely. All right. So let's dive into the next question. What gave you the idea for the concept of The Stable Boy?
When I was a kid, I was really involved into a lot of reading and watching television, and that kind of gave me a lot of inspiration for my writing. And a lot of those stories involved like animals talking, but it was always the humans could understand them. And I figured maybe I can use that concept for myself. But with The Stable Boy, I wanted to do something that was more involved with my story as well. Because when I was young and in junior high, we had a lot of extracurricular activities to choose from. And one of those activities was horseback riding. It's what I signed up for because I thought it would be a good experience for me and it seemed like a lot of fun. And we were taken to this place called Thorncroft, where we not only learned how to ride the horses, but we also learned how to take care of them, brush them, put on the saddles and the reins. And it just became a very therapeutic experience for me. And I felt like I developed a deep bond with all of the horses that rode there. And that was also the other half of where the idea of The Stable Boy came from. So one half was from some of the forms of entertainment I read and watched as a kid. And the other half was from my own experience growing up.
It must be just amazing to ride horses. I have gotten to do it when I was young, but I've never had the opportunity to do it again.
I always like to think that animals know more than what we give them credit for. And I loved animals as a kid, and I always felt like they had developed a sense of understanding and wisdom that we can't physically see or hear, but it's there.
Yeah, and we don't see what's there. And animals, you must have a real bond with animals.
Of course. I've had pets growing up too, and I felt really close to a lot of them as well. And I just think what better way to tell like an innocent and wholesome story than a child that can talk to animals.
Yeah. And at one point we're going to be able to do that. Johnathan, you know that, right? We're getting close. We're going to know what animals say when we talk.
Really? Is this a new type of technology?
Yeah, it's going to be AI, and AI is going to be able to read, and the horse will be able to speak to us or any animal. Give it about a year or two. It's going to be great. I hope it for dogs, so we'll know what they're thinking and saying, and we can talk to them back. So they're hopefully in that development phase at one point that it's going to be available to everyone. So your story is becoming life in certain ways. And I think it's important because if we could know what animals think and they could be able to express not just through the way that they do love us, but express more, it's going to be such a great connection.
Yes, definitely.
How do you feel when The Stable Boy was finally published?
To be honest, Neil, I had mixed feelings. One end, I was ecstatic that it was happening. But at the other hand, it felt too good to be true. But again, overall, it was exciting and thrilling, because that was my goal for the longest time, was to publish my first book. Man, I even prayed to God, if I can publish one book in my life, I would be happy. And it finally happened. So you can imagine like the amount of enthusiasm and joy that I felt when Trilogy called me up after receiving my email and asking me to publish my book. So I figured God answered my prayers and I jumped at the chance.
And it was worth it. Unbelievably. And so you finally published, and the feeling you have that you've created something makes you want to write more, doesn't it?
Oh, definitely. Writing is as important to me as it is breathing or eating for you. Like, it's just a part of my life. It's like my sanctuary, because when I'm typing on my laptop, I just feel safe. I just feel like I am expressing who I am.
What does the main character represent in your story?
I guess it's no secret that the main character represents myself to some degree, even though not because we just share the same name, but also because of the characteristics and traits. The main character reflects a lot of myself and what I experienced in my life. You know, The Stable Boy is fiction. Like I said before, a lot of this content in the book was mostly reflection of my own experience in life. How I was diagnosed at a young age, struggling in school with socializing with other kids, and just feeling like that the empathy from horses that I felt was special. So it was basically like a lot of my own experience in some way. It's like I wouldn't say it's a biography, but it holds a lot of aspects of my life in there. And I like to believe that a lot of my writing that I create, I always insert a part of myself in everything I write.
And it seems like you do. And then that's very important, because you're able to have that expression and tell your story. What is that hope when you're thinking about somebody that has been diagnosed like you to write a book like this, to have an opportunity to be an author? What encouragement would you give that person?
I would say to them that even though you might feel like you have great weakness, sometimes you have to look at your weakness as a strength. And even though you might not be like everyone else, you might be different, there's always a part of you that's special, a diamond in the rough, that you just got to find, and you got to bring it out of you. You got to show it to the world. You got to show that best side of you that is waiting to be revealed. And I would also like to say to like parents with children that are under the spectrum, that even though it might be hard sometimes to deal with the struggles, trials, and challenges of raising a child with a diagnosis, it's important that you should never give up on your children, because really you are all that they have. And I will want to guarantee you that as you continue to support them and raise them, they will find their way.
Everyone's going to find their way at one point in time, because there's just so many opportunities. I think pushing people, Johnathan, to do something, it just doesn't work. I think that they have to explore and figure out those things for themselves. Give them all the resources and tools that available, but don't push. As human beings, we don't like to be pushed, do we?
No, but sometimes a little push can be helpful. I like to believe that my parents pushed me in some areas of my life, but it helped me to get out of my comfort zone.
But it was not a force push. It wasn't you better do it push. More of an encouragement push.
Yeah, of course.
But the problem is most people push people very, not encouragement, not, hey, this is something you should try to do. Go do this or else. The threat. You understand what I'm saying? Versus, hey, this would be really fun. You should try this. I don't consider that defining as a push. I'm an educator myself, taught for X amount of years, and I use a lot of my teacher background when I worked with kids as a tutor and all these different things. And I see where I've had my success. It's not forcing or pushing somebody to do something. It's encouraging them to do something.
Absolutely. Because kids need that encouragement to not give up on themselves. You want to be sure you raise their self-esteem to the point where they can think to themselves, I can do this. And even though it's important that they develop some form of independence, it's also important they get support from their loved ones too, to let them know that they believe in them, that they believe in these kids.
Yeah, and they believe in these kids, and we can do something. Great point, but I think that your story will make other families that have children diagnosed with autism, Asperger's, that they're going to say, okay, if he did it, if Johnathan able to do it, we should encourage somebody else to do it. And it's a tremendous story in so many ways. Would you say you are visually detailed in your writing? I already know the answer is probably true. Go ahead.
It is true. I think that's how I can write, is basically just visual perspective or imagination, that I just picture the backgrounds, the scenes, the characters in my mind, and I detail them in the best way I can through my writing, because I am a visual learner by trade. And a lot of things I feel like that I've learned in life is through visual perspective. And I believe that's what really helps me with driving my writing, is just seeing like things in my mind's eye and developing them into something that can be best described on paper. And that's some of the best writers are capable of, is just taking things that we don't really see by the naked eye and developing them or expressing them in a way that people can connect to that on a level.
Yeah. And how do you write visually? Because this is so much a difficulty is visualizing, because you're really creating movies in your head. And that's what a lot of writers that they're trying to transition on from book to screen have a difficulty doing. The visualization and writing so it will be able to make it to a movie.
Like I said before, a lot of my inspiration for my writing did come from not only the books I read, but the movies I've watched. Because when I was a kid, I grew up watching a lot of the early Disney films, Don Bluth and Hayao Miyazaki, which a lot of these visionaries that I learned about as a kid growing up, they inspired me to write, to do my own form of writing. And that's what led to my skills. So that's why before I write a certain scene or a certain character, I try to picture it in my mind as to how I would depict them through my perspective.
And tell me that perspective, because you know what? People would want to know this from you, because your ability to look at words in your head and seeing and picturizing is something that's a challenge for every writer writing fiction.
It is, but some of that also has to come from like your own experience too. Again, like if you're trying to write a scene about the ocean, you've been to a beach, you've been to a shore, you take those experiences and you try to put that in the words of your literature. Or you take a certain character that you base off of someone you know in your life, and you try to remember that person that you've met, and you try to incorporate like what they wear, how they look, and how they present themselves to a degree that makes them like possible to depict in the reader's mind.
Key, because in that reader's mind, Johnathan, comes the process. So talk about how you picture your characters and developing the characters in Stable Boy. I want to know more of that process. You talked about yourself as the character, but what about the other characters that are in the story?
Some characters are based off of people I knew in my life, and other ones are just ones that I created from scratch. Because there are some characters I have had an idea of from the very beginning, and I know how to develop them, and others, they take some time to develop. It depends on what type of characters I want to include in the story, how I want them to interact with the other characters, how I want them to look and present themselves. Because the main thing is you want to present characters that stand out, that they are divergent from the other characters that are in the story. But you also make them to a degree that they're likable, that people enjoy reading about these characters, whether they're good, bad, annoying, funny, silly, strict. You want to be sure that you create characters like that you enjoy, but you also want to make sure that they stand out too. And you want to give them strengths and weaknesses that other people can relate to with these characters. Because I like to believe that the main focus of a story is always the characters. The plot is important, but if you can create good characters in a story, then you have a good story, because you want your audience to be connected with these characters and love them and enjoy their experience. Almost the same way that you would with someone you love from your family or a best friend you like to hang out with.
And those characters, what was your favorite chapter that you wrote?
It's hard because there was a lot of chapters in my book that I enjoyed writing, but I have to say out of all of them, my favorite had to be Goliath. Because to me, Goliath was, in my opinion, the one horse in the story that I felt like I could relate to the most. Because with Goliath, he is seen as almost like a monster. But throughout the story, the main character gets to know Goliath a little more and finds out that he is not as much of a monster as many people depict him to be.
Okay. And thinking about the favorite chapters and everything, how did the process is so amazing. And congratulations again for writing a book and releasing the book and letting my audience know about it. And so many people in the autism community's got to be blown away. You're a writer. How did you become a writer? So this gives hope for other people that anyone can write with the right resources and things available for them.
Being a person with a big imagination, it got to the point where I decided to write down my own ideas. That was recommended by my family, which is what I began to do. And in the beginning, it was just like any random thoughts that came to mind or ideas, nothing that was completely fleshed out. But it felt joyful or enjoying that I was able to develop these stories. And eventually it got to the point where I thought of The Stable Boy. And out of everything I created, it seems like the most special thing to me that I've ever made. And I wanted to make it into a book. It was just the one special story that I wrote that I'd never wanted to give up on. And that's when I knew I wanted to be a writer.
Is this the last of your books, or are you going to be writing more?
Oh, no, I'm definitely going to be writing more. Actually, a lot of people have been requesting that I make a sequel to The Stable Boy, which is definitely something I'm considering. And I'm actually in the process of writing my first book for an epic fantasy series I'm working on, which I'd be happy to share with my audience.
When time comes, you'll have to come back on the show for that. But when the time comes, you can't give it away. As somebody who is used to promoting for people at my show, it's just exciting. And what would you want to talk about the people who've read your book and the feedback they've given you? What have they said so far about The Stable Boy?
They enjoyed the story and my perspective on how I write the story, as well as how a lot of parents connect to the story as it pertains to a lot of what their children go through. And that it's a book of healing, that it is a story of overcoming one's trials and struggles, and how it's becoming a big inspiration to anyone who reads it. And that's what I want out of my writing. I want to inspire people with my writing, as well as tell a good story.
Absolutely. I love this. And again, what advice would you give kids who feel like the main character in your book?
Like I said, sometimes life can be a struggle and can be a challenge, especially for people that were diagnosed like me. But the important thing is that you never give up, or you never listen to the negativity that is thrown at you from this world. And that you just got to keep searching within yourself to find that strength that you believe that you have deep inside you, that you just got to find it and you got to bring it out and express it to everyone. Because like I said, sometimes our greatest weaknesses can become our greatest strengths. And that's what I want children who read my book to get from this story.
And would you say that you gotten good feedback from the autism community regarding your book? Have you gotten a chance to hear from them and other people that feel like the main character that want to write a book like yours to share their story?
I don't know about the autism community, but I have received a lot of positive feedback from parents that have children that are on the spectrum.
Yes.
And to me, that's a start.
That's huge. There's such a huge community, Johnathan, for you to tap into. And I hope you do. I really do. Because I think that the problem is that that there are 90% of people that want to write their story and write books, but only 10 in the United States alone, and only 10% have written their story. So you could be such an inspiration to others to write that story.
Thank you. And I'm glad to be an inspiration to those people in writing their own story, because I was really passionate about writing, and anyone else who's passionate about it, I want to be able to boost them in their endeavors. I want to ensure that they're able to overcome those obstacles and struggles that I faced while trying to turn The Stable Boy into an actual book.
All right. Where can people pick up your book? What's the best place, Johnathan?
My book, The Stable Boy, is available on Amazon and Barnes & Nobles. And if you want to know more about my book and about me, you can check my website at www.jehritz.com.
We appreciate it. Thanks again, John, for this great story. And I'm very impressed by you, sir. Take care.
Thank you. You too.
You're listening and watching The Neil Haley Show, and we'll be back in just a